All right, welcome back to Cosmic Cowboy Roaming the Weird West. This has been a long suffering episode due to technical difficulties, but I think we've got a hang of it now. And we are joined by Shelby and Diana, both of which
Hello.
have appeared previously. Diana is here for a 2025 astrology overarching theme reading. I don't want to say like it's predictions, but yeah, I think it'll be a cool episode. We did one of these for 2024, so it'll be cool to see how this one goes. And as we initially started discussing, the big theme for this is big changes with the outer planets. So if you want to go ahead on that again, Diana, and hopefully we won't have any more issues.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, cast. Yeah, it's interesting to even go back and see how things played out for you. I may even do that myself and put it into recording of 2024, and we're going to go back a little bit into 2024 because it does sort of flow into the early part of 2025 before things really ramp up. But we definitely have, because of the outer planets all shifting, some really pivotal moments, and I'm thinking we're going to see personal everyone's going to feel personal changes as well as collective changes for sure. So it will be a very exciting year. A lot of fire and air will be in the sky as opposed to the more earth water that we've been in previously. Um, yeah, so I guess we'll just jump right in. And of course, well, today we're having a Venus square Uranus day. So, that might be why we're having a few issues. But,
Yeah.
that could bring, that could bring all kinds of things. It's sort of, it has to do with that, well, shock and changes and sudden changes, and definitely anything digital with the Uranus and electrical things, as well as with the Venusian things. I mean, if anybody had any impulses today to go change their wardrobe or something aesthetic or paint their walls a weird color, I would maybe just hold off a few days, um, and or do anything drastic in their love life that might shift anything, because that's a Venus Uranus. But that's more of a very quick passing transit. So I think what we want to talk about right now is that we've just been in this last month and a Mercury retrograde. Mercury's gone forward, but we're still in the Mars retrograde, and that is actually dragging on for quite some time. I mean, the shadow of where that Mars was, going to go back retrograde to, the degree of that basically started right around the beginning of October. And then, of course, we didn't have it turn retrograde here until um, into uh, into November, or sorry, in December it is. So, but it's going to be retrograde into February,
And
and
what's like the characteristics of a Mars retrograde in general?
so yeah, it went retrograde. It station retrograde on December 6th at 4:33 Mountain Standard Time at 6 degrees. The Mars retrograde is, it's got a couple of themes, but first of all, we can talk about Mars. And Mars is our action oriented planet, right? It's what gives us the will and the drive to take action on things and sort of get our feet moving in the morning. It's what you're kind of passionate about, brings that willpower and strength, and sometimes is connected to what people would refer to as masculine or yang energy. And so it's that one that, the archetype of your impulses for um, anger, for how your even your sexual desire, anything, how you take action, any way that you feel like you're in competition or in conflict. It's basically the god of war, people often say. So, um, and that Mars is actually in that a more of a fire sign in Leo, but also retrograding back into Cancer. So it has two completely different energies because it's in detriment in Cancer. I mean, you think about Cancer and it's the nurturing, mothering energy, right? It doesn't really have a Marsy connection to it. So how it might come out is more passive aggressive or more of like the mama bear energy, where Mars and Leo is just that's a great place for it because it's sort of like let me take action, look at me go. They kind of don't have any fear. There's a lot of confidence with that Mars in Leo energy. So if that does that kind of make sense at all for
Yeah.
you? Yeah. Yeah, so we first of all had the outer planet of Pluto shift fully now into Aquarius. So that's now no longer going back and forth between that Capricorn and into Aquarius. So we are full on into that real, I guess, more innovative, technologically advanced. That's why we're hearing more about AI and ET and, even, AIS, the super AI, as well as augmented reality. We're really seeing a lot of changes in, um, hearing about robots, all those kinds of things. And right as it ingressed, there was, a lot of things coming up in the news about what the government was disclosing about the extraterrestrials, that kind of thing was really prominent, which was really interesting. So, yeah, we are full on in now until 2043, 44, basically, Pluto in Aquarius. And so I think we've all started to see a lot of themes with our Capricorn and the structures of anything to do with establishment, anything to do with big corporate, big business, government, health systems, political systems, legal systems, all those kind of highly structured things really taking a shift now. And I feel that's just going to continue. So going more into more, the people, humanitarian, collective, I guess, collaborations and that kind of thing. So, have you noticed that kind of thing as well?
Yeah. Like especially the technology, like the Willow supercomputer. Did you hear about that?
No.
So it was this like supercomputer that I think uses quantum computing. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a computer person. But they plugged in an equation to prove parallel universes, and the way that it was processing, or like what they estimated, was like it was going to take like 20 trillion years or something to complete this equation, like something absurd, like a huge amount of time. And then all of a sudden it just completed the equation like within minutes or hours, I can't remember exactly, but like a fraction of the estimated time. And so what they suspect happened was that it pulled RAM from the other parallel universes where the computer was also running simultaneously to do this equation, which they feel that like that itself proves the existence of parallel universes. And I feel like a lot of people right now are just kind of like it's coming so fast now that people aren't even being shocked, like that, like the UAPs, UFOs, the plasmoid consciousness, like the new studies that have come out proving that plasma is conscious, which like in paranormal circles, people have generally considered that to be true for quite a while. Like the excuse of let's say ghosts or UFOs being ball lightning. Like ball lightning is plasma, and plasma is the fourth level of matter, and it does show an element of consciousness to it. And so new studies have come out saying that plasma looks to be conscious. And essentially it's proving another life form, or like in a life form external to humans, or potentially there's some people that suspect like that the soul itself is plasma. So like the northern lights are plasma, the sun itself is plasma. There's been theories about the sun being conscious, and like indigenous people considered the northern lights to be the souls of ancestors. And so like everything that's coming out right now is just, as soon as it hit like the age of Aquarius, it's just like one thing after the other, like mind-blowing, paradigm shifting discoveries. And for myself, like all of this stuff has been stuff that I've considered real for a long time after reading like quantum physics theories. And now it's being proven, and it's being proven so rapid fire. Like it's almost like with each new discovery, it proves a new theory, and then they can use that theory to prove another theory. And it just keeps like stacking and stacking in this bizarre way of just like everything we've known is just completely shifting. Same politically, like the stuff that's happening politically, it feels like watching a TV show at times. So it's very like, yeah, I feel like most people, if even if they don't believe in astrology, I think most people now are being like, okay, like what is going on? Like something big has shifted.
Yeah, people
And
feel the
actually,
energy.
I wanted to ask you. You said it goes on till 2044. So, in terms of like the energy of it, is it like it enters Aquarius, and then like the Aquarian energy slowly builds as it moves further and further into the sign over the course
Yeah,
of the transit, or is
yeah,
it's like as soon as it's in there, that's like the max level energy for it, kind of thing?
yeah. I was going to go back to that. When you were saying age of Aquarius, there's a lot of controversy around that. Um, Meaning, like some people feel like we are not actually there yet. They feel like we're
Mm,
still kind of, in the age of Pisces. However, it doesn't matter like what what you feel or what you believe. You just have to know that we are definitely in a shift of energy that is very much more Aquarius driven, and
mm,
that whether like it will never be like, okay, on this day we are now in the age of, right? It's a
yeah.
gradual progressive shift in our the energy of how our human consciousness operates, as well as our whole world and the technologies. And I feel like we're at the threshold of it, and that it is just going to be faster and more and bigger. And that's kind of, I think, what the theme of the astrologers that I listen to and follow as well feel, that like we're just seeing how quickly things shifted, even though. And I think we also noticed when it went back into Capricorn, like how it kind of did go, backwards a little bit too, right?
When did it go back into
So,
Capricorn again?
well, so we'll go back a little bit, and we'll just go through this really quick. That we had Pluto. So think back. I don't know how you kids were kind of. You were probably a little older than Shelby, but in 2008 is when Pluto went into Capricorn, 0 degrees Capricorn, so from Sagittarius. So in January 2008, that's when it shifted in there. And then January of 2023, it started to enter like that shadow degrees. And so in March of 2023, so I mean, that was, of course, almost
Almost
getting
two
into
years.
2 years ago. Pluto entered that Aquarius right at 0 degrees, just a little bit. And of course, that was the first time that we felt any Pluto in Aquarius since 1798 ish. And so, and then in May of 2023, it, it's stationed to go retrograde. And it just had been dipped in at 0 degrees 22 minutes. So the 0 degrees of Aquarius is a very important degree point as well, that people have been paying attention to. Um, so it dipped in a little bit there, and then in June of 2023, it retrograded back into Capricorn, and it was just at that, that was just right when it went back in June of 2023 into Capricorn. and then it kept going back to 27 degrees 53 minutes there at so until November. And so then this year, 2024, in January, which we're almost done with this year, was when it went back to that 0 degree point in Aquarius. So I don't know if you remember back to the beginning of, it would be more the end of January, the 20th of January into February, if you noticed anything there. But it went all the way to 2 degrees and 6 minutes of Aquarius. And then we had another retrograde back into Capricorn just at one final time to kind of clean things up, revisit, revise, shift all that Capricorn energy. And that was from September 1st, 2024 until November 19th here is when
Mm.
it finally has shifted now for this, 18-year, 9-month period into Aquarius. So like we had the Capricorn was about 16 years where we had Pluto through Capricorn. This is an even longer period. It's almost that 20-year mark. So
Gotcha.
we had and it'll be here until September of 2043 when then that's when it starts to ingress into Pisces. So we have a lot of of little bits of the Aquarius energy, but we have not seen anything yet as far as we're just kind of getting started. And as of the beginning of February, that first week in February, was that's when it'll start to actually move past that furthest degree point that it's been in Aquarius, which is was about like that 2 degrees and 11 minutes. That's as far as it's gone in before it had retrograded back. And so we'll be getting past that point. So that's one of the reasons that we are kind of slow to kind of shift into this year's energy was will Pluto's just moving on and moving past that. Another reason is, well, we just had a nice short, or I guess it was a December Mercury retrograde, which sometimes we've had them at, like last year was at the beginning of the year, but this year we had it in December here, which was nice because at least we're through that part of it as we start the new year. And so we'll be coming out of shadow of that Mercury retrograde on January 3rd. And but the bigger one is that we have the Mars retrograde that we've been in that shadow of. And so, being that it's our action oriented drive, willpower, energy, we may just feel like, for some people, it might be a little harder to, I know I need to do this. I know I want to move forward with this, but having, that full speed ahead action is, you might feel like it's a little bit delayed, right? So,
Yeah, that's what Shelby and I were talking about is like this holiday season feeling really like I just want to like rest. I don't want to do anything. And usually during the holidays, I'm
yeah,
like pretty peppy. Like I want to get up and go do
yeah.
stuff.
No, and that's what
And
everyone,
yeah,
everyone has been talking about. We lost
are we
audio,
back?
Cass.
She just
Can you hear
froze.
me? Can you hear me?
We're back.
We're back.
We're back?
You were
Okay.
saying in the holiday season, like usually you're pretty peppy, but this one you haven't been as much. You've just been like really wanting to
Yeah,
rest.
no. Like normally I want to like hang out with friends and organize stuff and nah. And like even especially because New Year's is on a Tuesday this year, like none of my friends want to go out or anything. And I'm like, I kept trying to make it work and I was like, I'm gonna get tickets for something and go do something. And it's just
Yeah,
like, no, I'll just stay at home, like get some work done on
yeah,
stuff that I've been putting off. But for the most part, like I'm not I used to be a really big reader and I lately since university haven't been, and I think I've read more in the last like in the holiday week than I've read in like a year combined. Like I've finished one book and I'm halfway through another book already, and like Shelby said the same thing too. Like she finished a book in a couple days, and
yeah,
yeah, it's really feeling like
yeah,
hermit mode big time.
yeah.
I'm gonna use this opportunity to just plug libraries. They feel very Aquarian. wanted to let everyone know that if you support your library, you too can save $615 on books.
Yeah. Yeah, don't give Amazon your money for books. Just go library.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that has technologically advanced as well because I mean, before you just went to your local one. Well, now Shelb's has been like ordering books. Like Grandpa said, read this book, and so she just went on there and ordered it up, and then they bring it in and they put it on hold and they do the exchange, and it's
Yeah.
all a
Yeah.
lot more easy to get the books you want. You don't have to, it's a whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, and even
ordering.
like Libby, like the app that you can use now
Yeah.
too is like incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so, and like that's just, it's just, another one of those innovations that's very like, it's the technology is like catching up with it now to make it easier for people. It's just so, it's so awesome. And I love it so much in the sense that I'm like, hey, here's this like wonderful resource. It's for the collective. Everyone can use it. And it's like, I get the buzz from it that people do from Amazon. Like I've never been a huge like
Mm.
Amazon ordering package, mostly just because it was like money. Because it costs money and I remember when I order stuff because I've been carefully selecting it. I will listen to podcasts, someone will come on to plug their book and I'm like, I gotta read that. And then I forget that I've ordered books.
Mm.
And I'll get an email being like, "Hey, you should come pick this up." It's very very cool. But sorry to go back to the astrology. We were talking about Mars retrograde, and yeah, you said that you've been resting. What are some other things, Mom, for the retrograde that might come up? Can you just review with listeners like how long that retrograde is going to last this year?
Yeah. So I just want to go back a little bit. Let's talk about sort of what all the things are going to maybe happen as a big overview, and then we'll get more into the specifics if that works for you guys.
Yeah.
So because we have the Mercury, or mind the retrograde, but everyone talks about Mercury retrogrades. Usually, we get a couple of those a year, and that one was from November 25th to December 15th. So it was a little bit, earlier in December. And that's part of what we were dealing with this week too, because Mercury has been retrograding in Sagittarius, and we have Jupiter in Gemini. So they're both in their detriment in opposition. And so that's been like, I don't know if anyone else noticed, but trying to like navigate details has been extremely hard. Like it's sort of like this big ideal of things you want to do, or, maybe a shift in beliefs, or maybe just trying to do things. I felt it because of my energies I have in Sagittarius and Gemini. And like it was sort of like, oh, I want to do this thing, but like trying to nail down, the details has been really, really difficult. And we actually had an exact opposition on Boxing Day of that. So there's just been, that's why this week has been really challenging, because we've had all of these kind of reoccurring energies because of this, retrograde action that we've been in. And I think even with the Mercury retrograde, just had gone somewhere on a little road trip and then trying to get back, a place that I've gone over and over. Like I've done this road many, many times, traveled it. I ended up taking the wrong direction and forgetting to turn, and ended up like 45 minutes out of my way. And I mean,
Jeez.
yeah, just go. I was also on my Bluetooth phone talking at the same time, but it was
Mm.
just like, just little crazy things like that where you get those delays with travel and all that kind of thing.
Hey Mom, can you do us a favor? Because you said you wanted to do like a big overview of everything
Yeah,
and
it
then
was
go
just
in. Can you just read? Do you got like a list that you can just read out of
that's
all?
what I was just gonna go
Okay.
back to.
Just
So
read the list.
we were in that, and so we will have. speaking of Mercury, we're going to have a retrograde 3 times in 2025. And we will continue with this Mars retrograde into February and then be in the shadow until the spring. But in the meantime, right around then, we'll also be in a Venus retrograde. That will be beginning in the spring. And that March, April time, there's just a whole conglomeration of planets that are in that Pisces area. We'll also see a nodal shift. So we've been in where the nodes have been in Aries and Libra, and our nodes are now shifting into Pisces and Virgo because by nature the nodes move in retrograde motion. So they go back. Yeah, so they go back. So they'll be in the axis of Pisces and Virgo. And so that's another, 18 or so month transit. So our eclipses, that affects our eclipses, and our eclipses then will be more in the Virgo and the Pisces. We'll have one more in Aries. We also will have the shift of Saturn and Neptune into Aries. As we know, Aries is the 0 degrees Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. Aries, of course, I even consider more the beginning of the year as opposed to January because of the zodiac wheel. So that's the other two outer planet shifts that we'll have. And then we will have Uranus move in Gemini from Taurus. And we've had it in Taurus for quite some time now. I think it was since 2018. We'll look at that. Yeah, I think that was all the big themes that we'll look at, and besides the eclipses and then all the other, of course, aspects in between. Another thing is what we've also experienced this week is a Saturn and Jupiter square, and that takes us back to when we had the Great Conjunction. And the Great Conjunction happened in 2020.
Yikes.
Yeah, so Jupiter and Saturn in the beginning of 2020 got together. And of course, right before we had, that was at the solstice of 2020. It was January that Pluto and Saturn had come together. In January, like Jupiter was still within orb, right? So it was like people talked about the three of them coming together. And then, of course, what happened with everything shifting and changing and the whole world dynamics that we knew of 2020. And then, so this is the first square since this great conjunction, which happened around the solstice of 2020 of Jupiter and Saturn. And so that's kind of a shift. And we actually have 3 of those. And so we had, because of retrograde motion. Yeah. So the first one was August 19th. So you can think back to that square. And then we just had one on the 24th. So I'm bringing this up because everyone's talking about how this week of Christmas and, wanting to do stuff has been like so hard. Like people just want to rest, or they've been, things have been not feeling as, maybe as energetic and wanting to get together and just needing to like move through these energies because they're intense. Like Jupiter is expansion, and of course Saturn is that limitation and restriction feeling. And then we're going to have another one of those on the 15th of June because of retrograde motion. This is kind of a a real big shift because it involves two outer planets, right? And so, Jupiter involves our belief systems, and that Saturn is, of course, uh, major sort of limitations and restrictions and responsibilities and that kind of thing, and it feels heavier, right? So that might have been part of the reason.
So if you're like a person who's really in your body and you're kind of like trying to feel what's going on, so like this, am I right and understand like this could be an energy where like if I check in with myself, like I just feel like a lot more sluggish than usual, and maybe I feel like a little bit heavy, like in the inside of my chest. Could that be one way that it kind of manifests in a person?
For you, absolutely too, because just thinking about a Sagittarius rising is ruled by Jupiter, and you think about how it's hitting your own inner energy too, right? Like you want to take those big mundane transits and then you want to compare them to your natal chart and see how those transits are, connecting with you, your natal chart, and what places they're connecting to and what areas, which has to do, of course, with the house system, right? And I use whole sign houses. So, and then the themes around each of the houses. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference. So we had that on the 24th, and then we move into a Scorpio moon, which is another, it's not exactly like our happy, jolly Sag moon, right? And then we had this Mercury opposing Jupiter. They're both in detriment, and yeah, they kind of, it's sort of mutual reception, they call that, because they're in each other's sign, but they're, it's still kind of difficult energy, even though Mercury was already forward by then. That was the third pass of that. We had one November 18th and December 4th. And then on top of it, speaking of heavy, we then also have the third pass of Mercury. Again, we've been dealing with this Mercury retrograde squaring Saturn. So we don't just get a nice quick, I mean, Mercury can move fast sometimes, right? And it'll just whip by these things. But we've had three passes of the Mercury square, which is a difficult aspect, on November 12th, and then December 6th, and then yesterday, December 27th. And like I said, today was the Venus square Uranus, which could be a real breakthrough and nice electric, sudden, shocking change in energies, but it's still a square. So yeah, so that's been part of it. And then on the 29th, we have our Chiron, our wounded, healer, the one that, the fears and all our kind of shadows and things that want to come up where we feel insecurity and that kind of thing. Well, that is stationing at 19 degrees. The interesting part about that 19 degrees is that's where we had that big eclipse in April. We had that 19-degree Aries eclipse. It was quite significant for a lot of people because, again, we're at the beginning of the zodiac, and for people that was just a lot more of a bigger eclipse, right? Like it changed our entire neighborhood here suddenly, like came out of nowhere.
Mm.
Yeah, that Chiron has been stationing retrograde since July 26th. So it's nice with it going forward, which will be tomorrow, right into around 2:12 in the afternoon, Mountain Standard Time, because we've been working, it's been sitting on this degree. So that's another heavy thing, right? Sitting on this degree at this eclipse point for quite some time because it's stationed. It was just not really moving. So we've been feeling that heaviness of that as well. But going forward, it allows for, hopefully some movement in the energy, and will allow for us to maybe bring some healing in. And I feel like we've seen that. We've seen it in family. We've seen some real kind of all of a sudden coming together of family that had been kind of separated too since that 2020 year. yeah, that, people just been on different pages, and there's been a lot more divide, and there's there's been family things that have brought them together.
Would you say like that would be the same for community in general though too, or just family?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's
Yeah,
that's what I've noticed is like kind of the working class waking up to the fact that like we're being exploited and it really needs to stop, and that like politicians aren't serving the people at all and not even pretending to
yeah,
serve the people anymore. And I've seen quite a bit of that of
yeah,
someone who might not normally speak out about something like that type of person now getting very vocal of like, hey, they can't be doing this to us anymore, which has been interesting to watch, and interesting just in relation to 2008, because 2008 was when the Occupy movement happened. And I feel like that was the
yeah. And
last
that's
time we really saw that before like identity politics really kicked up and divided a lot
yeah,
of people.
and everything you're speaking of, Cass, yeah, to me just speaks Pluto. Pluto
Yeah.
into Capricorn 2008, and there was, quite a recession that happened then, a real
Mm-hmm.
crumbling of certain things. And then, yeah, people now being able to see, like, the people are speaking out, the people want,
Mm-hmm.
and things are being disclosed. And then, of course, Mercury going retrograde is really good for that. It's like, go back, review, revise, but there's, ghosts from the past that can come up, but there's also a lot of truths that can also come to light. But Pluto's really letting go of all of that. You know, Everybody was like always wanting to, and not everybody, but a lot of people, were just really wanting to follow the systems and the institutes, and not realizing what was going on under the surface is really getting disclosed, right? So,
Yeah, one thing I've noticed in my life and in general is like a lot of folks, it seems to be quite a bit of like Gen X people, and specifically women, who have really prioritized fitting into like a system that rewards appeasing patriarchy. I've noticed that there's like a push back towards that, like with the increase in like traditional family, like trad wife type stuff. But I've also noticed like kind of the inverse of that, of like people who've played into those systems for a very long time and have been rewarded for them are no longer being rewarded in the same way. And it seems to be like people who've like pandered to like women who've pandered to like men and like really worked for male approval are no longer getting it in the same way that they were before. And
yeah,
it
Like
seems to be
just
shaking things up quite a bit.
yeah, like be the good mom, be the good wife, be the good this,
Yeah.
and then they're just kind of like,
And I've noticed like the only thing I can make it equal to is like a psychotic break, and it's not quite that. It's more of like women like the increase in like chronic pain issues like and like autoimmune illness and that sort of thing among women of this group, and like the complete inability for women to function in these roles anymore, that they've been told, well, if you just you know stay skinny and look pretty and land the man that makes the money, and you're going to be fine, you don't have to worry about anything. And so many of them now, like I'm just watching it and like hearing it in my life and seeing it online, like these women, their bodies just like absolutely rebelling. And maybe them not so much rebelling, because I have noticed that like a lot of women are kind of doubling down on that in spite of these issues in their body. But some of them are very much like, nope, that's it, I'm done. Like the family that I was supposed to have, the husband that I was supposed to have, the stay-at-home mom, or like the like women acceptable jobs, just like overturning those and like completely starting over, completely like just hitting the reset on their lives. And it's been, I wonder like maybe if like the Venus retrograde incoming kind of might have something to do with that too.
oh yeah, we could see some things come up, but to me, like that's that whole patriarchal old tradition that
Mm-hmm.
we've been dealing with this Saturn, square. It's, it sort of started at that same time as we had the Pluto conjunct Saturn, the old traditions, and then Jupiter and beliefs, right? And we're letting go of all of that old belief system. And it's been part of this transition of Pluto in Aquarius in this patriarchal crumble that it's like not working anymore. So you have to let it go. Like there is just no going back to those ways. Those ways are out of date. They're not people energetically in our consciousness in the collective world. We can't go on like that. It's just not. It's that you know power over with Pluto and in the and then of course the rise of the divine feminine. There's been a lot of talk about that, and we could see a lot of shifts happen as we move into the spring with all these external planetary shifts and with that Venus retrograde too. It definitely could bring up some more of it. And we have to remember that anything that happens in our body, I do the emotional empowerment consultation as well, and learned a lot about that connected to consciousness is people living down in the lower levels of consciousness of fear and guilt and shame and even grief, like there's and trying to move forward in anything. It's not sustainable while you're in those lower places, and that anything in our body that's showing up physically is coming from an emotional and energetically unprocessed emotional place. So we have to realize that this is just part of the shift, and no, it's not going to work anymore to just try to do that old patriarchal thing. And another dynamic that's happening on that we've seen also before that was really, I don't know, it's going to affect people differently, but it's that power dynamic of Mars opposing Pluto. So now that we've had that Pluto move into Aquarius and we have this Mars, well, of course it's retrograding, so we're going to see that happen again. So that's on January 3rd. We're having another one. Yeah, of that Mars Pluto opposition. Those are the two malefics, what people call the malefic planets, in a major standoff in opposition, right? And so, and we're going to see that again in April 26th. And so that's another really, and it because it's kind of already in the ethers too, right? It's not like a one and done of that day. You feel some of these transits, sometimes a few days before, sometimes a week before, sometimes a few weeks even, because of how slow they move, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and so I'm just I had called up. We won't look at it now, but I had called up um, this Jupiter Saturn dynamic that happens. How like following that through in basically in the cycle that it's going through, and we're hitting those three squares of that. So there's a lot of dynamics at play that involve big power player planets. you know so and we had all these sort of we've had them before, but then in this one week of the holidays, we've had activations of a lot of them. So, and I think that's kind of on purpose, like it's just allowing people to really process what has to definitely be completely gone and done and over. Yeah. And I've heard even, because I like to listen to mediums and stuff, them talking about people just having purging, or that you think about the Saturn and you think about that bringing in people who've been sick. Lots of people have been sick, right? And it's just our way of processing that. But yeah, I just wanted to see, we had November 3rd, 2024 was the first Mars opposing Pluto. After it was in Mars was in Cancer then, opposing Pluto in Capricorn at 20, right at 29 degrees. So that's kind of a huge combination point. And of course, we got this Mars fiery, like assertive, action oriented, the one who likes the conflict or gets into clashes, or it's the energy where we can feel aggressive or assertive or angry, impulsive, that kind of thing, the willpower in opposition with the power player. That could be, I don't know if anybody noticed, but we had that. We felt it here. I came home.
We don't need to talk about that.
What's interesting about that is that's right. The Mars is right on my Venus. So I had the power opposition with the Venus.
Hi, I'm the Venus.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also the one who picked the fight, but it's fine. Anyways. I just wanted to let the viewers know before we move on that there are 82 pages of prep that Diana put in.
My lord.
That's her notes. So we could keep going for a very long time. We've talked about Mercury. We've talked about Mars. We've talked a little bit about Pluto and Saturn, like what's going to happen there.
Yeah. So I think that's why I had just wanted to go back a little bit to go forward. And, we're just talking about the different dynamics that are at play here, and just sort of some dates I wanted to give you guys to go look back at to see how these energies are playing out for you, was all. And I will also, let's just talk a little bit about the dates. We'll go through them of the Mars retrograde, just so you can kind of track it and keep track of where it's sort of at, because it's pretty significant in the beginning of this year. And I mean, we're focused more on the beginning of this year. We can talk and get together again later to talk about the more specifics of, say, the second quarter, when we have a really big dynamic of planets coming together. So as mentioned, our Mars is in 2 different signs, and it had a shadow starting around, maybe the beginning of October, where it hit that degree point around Earth of 17 degrees of Cancer. So wherever that is in your chart. And then on November 3rd, it entered Leo. And on December 6th was when it actually stationed retrograde. So it was at 17 degrees Cancer. It moved on through into Leo, hit 6 degrees of Leo, and now, of course, is retrograding back. So on December 12th was when it actually was opposing Venus. And then on January 3rd, 2025, is when we were having this opposition to Mars. And so on January 6th, 2025, Mars is then going to retrograde back into Cancer. So hit 6 degrees of Leo. It's been in Leo all kind of through December. And then on January 6th, a month later, it goes back into Cancer. And on February 23rd, it's when it stations direct again at that 17 degrees of Cancer. And then it starts its descent back. So it won't be it'll go back into Leo on it will go back into Leo on the 17th of April. It won't be past that 6 degrees of Leo until the 2nd of May. Somebody's birthday.
And that's when it completes its shadow phase.
That's when it completes shadow. So the actual retrograde itself is December 6th to February 23rd. But because of the shadow, it extends it a little bit outside of that. But, it's not like, you'd be feeling that lack of drive and will to go forward throughout all of, October to May. It's here more December, January, February. But we definitely also have to keep that in consideration, why we're not all like, let's go do things, So, and that retrograde and, Leo just, wants you to feel that reflection time, because usually Mars and Leo people are like, yeah, let's put it out there. Let's go out there. Total confidence, right? They're not hesitant to do anything, because Leo's that shiny, fiery sign, right? That likes to be seen and likes to take action, and then with the Cancer Cancer Mars, which is typically not wanting to get out there and do things anyway. With it in retrograde, that could really have you looking back more into the emotions of things, and your self-expression and that kind of thing too. So
this Mars movement into Leo, January 6th, if I'm not mistaken, that's the day that the presidents switch over, is it not? In the US?
So on January 6th, and then of course we have this dynamic, which is even more significant.
Oh God.
Right? With this Mars Pluto opposition.
I think it's the 20th that the presidents shift over.
Is it? Okay. But anyways, January 6th, it does go back into Cancer. But there's some talk about what in the world is going to shake out with all of that, because, and it could be, and it is just like you're saying, it's like watching a movie. It's not like actual, let's do good things for the people kind of a energy. It's sort of like, let's watch the show, bring up all the stuff, and let it all kind of get exposed and blow up and get see how it's all going to shake out.
Well, and why I think January 6th, like why that popped into your mindcast was when
the insurrection.
Here we are 4 years later. That's when the Capitol in the US got stormed. So I think that's why you're like, wait a second, that is the same, but it's very interesting.
It still feels like it has potential for something similar to happen. Yeah. Or at least similar energy.
Yeah. From January 6th to February 23rd, when we're in that Mars and Cancer, and that shift will be more, that's the home, the family, where you feel emotional security. So where is it that you aren't feeling as emotionally supportive, or where you are feeling over, protective, or where you want to protect more, or where you want, things to change in your strategy with your home and family. So it's sort of like looking at your emotions, and could feel very emotionally draining. And of course, we've already been in this Mars and Cancer. So it's that, where is our exertive, ness that it's just been in retrograde. It's where it's been. So so that there's just more than one thing that that's really affecting us at this time, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Just to switch gears, I guess, I'm really curious about the Venus retrograde. I know we touched on it just a little bit previously when we chatted, but like that also sounds like it might be like we don't often go through Venus retrogrades, right? Or is it like a once a year thing?
No, it. How often do we have our retrograde? So our Mars is every 2 years. So the last one with that was
Mm.
22 to 23, and our Venus retrograde is
Well, we just had one the summer of Barbie.
almost, yeah, yeah. So that was like
2023.
2023 in the summer,
Mm.
right? So they were going to have this other one like spring of 2025. So I forget the exact cycle, and I know it has lots to do with there's the five pointed star, right, where how Venus shows up in 8 year
Mhm.
cycles, and we actually did a little thing about that. I think right in the very beginning.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, but
For the next episode, you should research more about Venus retrograde.
yeah, we can talk a little bit. Well, talk
Yeah.
a little bit about the Venus, the whole cycle, right? The synodic cycle, and exactly
Mm.
how that works. So, um, yeah, I know in the last Venus retrograde during that time, I heard a lot of things around, of course, relationships with women and things, like even somebody and the whole, and then that was the Barbie thing. Yeah.
And Taylor Swift, and it was the summer of the ladies.
Yeah.
With Taylor Swift and Beyonce and Barbie.
And what relationships were important to you and what connections were working, and some people, and I've seen people like and heard about people that were friends for a really long time get together and it just like turn into a complete disaster, and it'd be like, this relationship right now is just not working for me. And people have been friends for a very very long time, and those relationships, seeing them fall apart,
Yeah, I
is
felt like I had the blinders torn off in regards to a specific friendship,
mhm.
and like really realizing that he did not value me the way that I valued him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was definitely needed to happen, but it was kind of like a big shakeup for my own self-worth, I guess would be the best way to put it. But,
Yeah.
yeah, and so like this Venus retrograde's got me a little scared, but yeah, we'll see how it goes,
Well,
I
this is,
guess.
yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing with everything, Cass, coming into 2025 is get yourself, and it can be part of this, Mars in Cancer. Get yourself things things in place that help you stay grounded, help you feel safe, help you work through emotional processes of things that are going to come up and that are just going to shift and that are just going to fall away. And if it's falling away, let it go. Like, not try to hang on too tight, and do things that fill your heart and go on paths that fill your heart rather than feeling fear, because we could all just sit here and be all constantly in fear and anxiety, which is, basically the prolonged chronic fear with everything that's changing and shifting so fast. And so if you see something that just is no longer your priority or anything that's serving you from that heart centered place, let it go and find ways to get yourself grounded or do breath work or get back in your body feeling good and safe, and fill your cup with whatever that is. If it's dancing like, nobody's watching or everyone's watching, whatever works for you, or, walking in nature, or going to find some water if you're very watery, if, like if you're a fire fueled people, if it's going on an adventure, or gathering with friends, or chatting and walking and moving energy that way, or just hiding under your blankets for a short time and giving yourself some real self care. But finding ways to mitigate any kind of fear, because it's just there's just things that are actually really going to that are just going to fall away and no longer be, part of our lives in some way or another. And they
Yeah.
all are meant to be. Like it's all for our own life purpose. We have to think about, as we all are energy and we come down to this world with some type of gift, talent, ability, and purpose, that, and whether it just be, just being a real good mom and it be nothing, huge or big, or whether it is just a matter of, we're supposed to, well, for me, I was joke about my chemical turn to alchemy, you know, the where I thought my life should go and how it was supposed to go are completely two different things, and it's not been easy, that's for sure.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
because I was living in that masculine world, and I didn't know how to nurture my feminine side, and I was caught up in that patriarchal world and that material place of Pluto Capricorn, and that I'm somebody if I'm making good money and working in a pair of coveralls and doing the thing out in the industry where the money is, and and I was taught that. And I my dad was the one definitely driving that bus for sure, because I know I was really confused at 19, and I know why, because my soul was kind of needing to call me. Although what I did do, I can see in my chart too, and it really served a purpose. So yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so and
Yeah.
then but now it's here I am in this a totally different world, and now I have to figure out that it's going back to that Venus thing again, the self-worth with what your true purpose is, right? And
Hmm.
feeling worthy of what your actual natural gifts are, because it's pretty, and it has lots to do with the nodes too, right? I mean, I have a north node in Pisces, which is extremely esoteric, and I come in, knowing how to be a Virgo, right? Looking after the details, organizing, making stuff happen, being of service, just knew how to do that. So it's not, I don't want to stay focused on me here, but I'm just using it as an example of, like,
Hmm.
let yourself be guided to whatever it
Mhm.
is that's speaking to your own heart, because us trying to live in that world of, that this is what I was told to do. This is what my parents wanted me to do. This is the environment I grew up in. This is what's expected in my culture. This is what's expected of me in my own mind. It might not be where your actual light shines and what fills your cup and what fills your heart with what brings you passion and joy and where your purpose is.
I
Yeah, and I think
think
we're
that,
definitely seeing a big shift in that. Oh,
yeah.
sorry, Shelby, go ahead.
No, you go ahead first. You go ahead first.
I think it's like as much. The only reason I feel fear about the Venus retrograde is just because I know how it impacted me last time. So it's like, okay, like, but at the end of the day, that loss was really beneficial because I was spending a lot of time, wasting a lot of time on that person in my life when I really needed to not be. So like apprehension because it's like, okay, what's going away this time? But at the same time, knowing that like on the other side, it's gonna be for the better. But one thing that I've
Yeah,
noticed.
it doesn't express the same way twice either.
Hmm.
So that was for that
Yeah.
time and that situation, right? So, how it's going to express this time is, could look completely different.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great spot for us to pause and pick up this conversation again and go through the rest of the transits again that you had left to cover, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, I think the last kind of points that you had. I think that's just a really wonderful thing to kind of sit and reflect on, and I think it's a good spot to
Yeah.
pause.
I agree. Like one more thing I was gonna say though is that what I've noticed is I've talked to quite a few people who have said like they feel like a really big shift is coming, but the
Hmm.
difference this time around is a lot of people don't feel the fear that they normally have felt. And I know that for myself. Like obviously I said I'm like fearful of the Venus retrograde, but not so much fearful as like apprehensive of like, okay, well, like what kind of like when you're at the top of the hill in the roller coaster.
Yeah,
But yeah, like a lot of these shifts, like it's I think whatever's coming out on the other side is gonna be so much better because like so much is broken right now. And like,
yeah,
it really just needs like a big shakeup of so many different systems and different ways of being
yeah,
to get
absolutely.
us repositioned to something
Paradigm.
else.
Yeah, absolutely. Complete paradigm shifts for sure. And that has a lot to do with, yeah, everything that all these outer planet situations that are happening. That Venus stations retrograde March 1st, so you can keep that in mind, in
Mm,
Aries at 10 degrees. And the interesting part is we have Mercury actually going into shadow then, and it's stationed retrograde on the 15th. So Mercury and Venus will be retrograde in
nice.
March. Yeah. And then we have the Venus station direct on April 12th, but in
Gotcha.
Pisces. So this is the difference with this one too, right?
Yeah.
That other one, yeah, that other one was in Leo, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think
Isn't it?
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an Aries Pisces one, and Pisces, of course, is our esoteric. So let's go back here to what's happening with just some of these general energies that we want to get through, just so that we can name them, and then we can reconvene again and talk about stuff in more detail. Um, on also, like this week, December 21st, we had the sun enter Capricorn, right? We're in
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn season right now. And so we have the solstice, the Capricorn solstice, and for us in the northern hemisphere is our winter solstice, which allows everybody to, I guess, it's like the sun's standing still, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it allows us to pause and reflect. So that's just a natural time that we have to do that anyway. And then we'll have the Capricorn new moon as well. That's coming up. So Capricorn
Mm-hmm.
new moon, um, it's actually, I feel like, just kind of be a nice reset after this really kind of big week that we've had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So do your, and it's nice because it's right around New Year's here. So you can set your intentions, after the Capricorn new moon, and set your intentions even for the year. If you want to have your little ceremony or list of things, and you have a few days, of course, as the light comes back in.
Yeah, I always find like the last new moon of the year is a good time to do like some tarot reading and like go like month by month for predictions and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Allow yourself some time to sit and reflect and decide how you want, set the intention of how you want this year to go, but don't hold on to the energy of like, this better happen for me. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah,
Like because the big planets are shifting, something could come in that completely changes the whole dynamic. So you don't want to hang
yeah,
on to it all too tightly, right?
for sure.
And so yeah, we're gonna have uh, that new moon that happens here on the 30th, right? So and
And
then
for the next episode, like, what are some things that you want to come back and talk about for the next one?
I just want to go over just some general things like for the big planets, which we'll look at for the rest of the year, and then you guys can decide sort of at that time when we record again when we focus. Yeah. So the
Yeah,
30th
I
of
think
December.
next episode it would be good to go into like the nodes and like what the eclipses
Yeah.
might look like
Yeah.
for next
That
year. I think
sounds.
that'd be a cool spot to get into.
Yeah. So I'm just going to finish up just the big kind of dates of the planets, and then yeah, and then we can look at any kind of details in another episode, just so people have the dates so they kind of are aware. So when we have our new moon in Capricorn, that's at 9 degrees in the afternoon, 3:26 p.m. So just so you know when that is. And then the interesting part about that is, speaking of the nodes, then later that evening, like at 10:33, that's when the nodes shift. So the north node will move into, or sorry, no, that's when we have a north node sextile the Pluto that's already just moved into Aquarius. So it's hitting that, that power dynamic of that Pluto just before it will shift into it's leaving the Aries, right? And then it goes into the later degrees of Pisces. And we'll also have Venus in Pisces too throughout January here. So that'll be nice because it likes to be there. And then so we'll January 3rd is kind of that big day with that Mars opposing Pluto. And then as we move on, we'll have so January 6th is the date the North Node moves into Pisces as well, and the South Node moves into Virgo. And then, so they'll be there for that 18 and a half months. So that's kind of a big theme for the year. And then, like I said, on March 1st, we have that Venus station retrograde. On March 14th, we have a lunar eclipse in Virgo at 23 degrees or almost 24 degrees. And then on March 29th, we have that other eclipse, because we always have the eclipses that happen within a couple weeks of each other. So that'll be a solar eclipse, but that one will be in Aries, just the way that it works out. So that'll be our last eclipse in Aries, because then they'll be shifted by the fall. So we'll have that happening, as well as another big thing just right before that is Venus in retrograde is also going to, conjunct Neptune at the 29 degrees. So Neptune hasn't moved yet into Aries. So that's kind of another big moment as well. There's a kind of a bigger cycle here with the Neptune as it enters Aries on March 30th. So, we've on February 20th, on February 20th, 2026, so next year, is a really big moment of Saturn conjoining Neptune. So, and that kind of starts a new 35-year cycle. So we have a few things as we have this Neptune moving into Aries on the 30th of March. So that's happening. And then another thing is Saturn then will enter Aries. So Saturn will be at 0 degrees, and that'll be the 24th of May. Saturn enters that 0 degrees of Aries. And remember that Aries is a fiery cardinal, get started, go energy that Mars, of course, rules, right? And it's the beginning of the zodiac. So having both Neptune and Saturn hit that 0 degree Aries, that's big energy right there.
Out of curiosity, like, is this pretty standard where like a lot of the outer planets all change
No,
drastically? Or like
no.
this is pretty unique, hey?
Oh yeah, no, that's why it is so unique in 2025, and why
Gotcha.
everybody is like, whoa. Have we had this happen before? I don't think so. First of all, no one's experienced Pluto and Aquarius on top of it. We have all the other planets shifting. So then we're June 9th, we see Jupiter move from Gemini. Jupiter moves every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more of, moves quicker. But Jupiter's moving into Cancer until, of course, June 29th, 2026. And because it is that year transit. And then July 7th, we have Uranus entering Gemini. And that is big, fast information. Uranus, of course, is kind of like that higher mind type energy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
shocking and sudden and electric, and Gemini in an air sign. It'll be like, keep your feet on the ground, because it probably will feel like a lot of technology and, a lot of shifts and changes that way. So, yeah. So, yeah. And then we'll have, uh, starting in the fall, then in like September, then some of the planets will retrograde back into their previous signs. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
have all that forward movement, but then we will see some retrograding back, like Saturn goes back into Pisces. And we have then the lunar eclipse in Pisces. We have to look at these Pisces energies too, because that, even though we're going more into air and fire, that's a lot of water. And
Mm-hmm.
when there's eclipses, we see lots of weather things that can often occur too, then, right? So, yeah. And then we'll have on the 21st of September a partial solar eclipse in Virgo. So on the opposite side of the Pisces axis. But yeah, Uranus will go back into Taurus in November. Mercury, of course, we also have, like I said, those three retrogrades. So we have another, and yeah, and lots of things will be very different by then, I'm sure. So
No
yeah,
kidding.
that's some of the big themes of the year.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think maybe next time let's reconnect and let's discuss this like this water energy with the fire in the air, cuz yeah, it does sound a little stormy.
Yeah,
And
and keep
yeah,
track.
definitely get
I,
into like the nodes and stuff.
I recommend everyone getting their journal with their dates. We use these, they're amazing. You can order digital copies and just print them yourself, but these
Okay.
honeycomb,
Are they
yeah,
customized to your specific chart?
yeah, yeah. And so they have the mundane,
Oh, I like that.
customize it to, and then in blue, they have your own transits, because you put in all your
Mm,
birth data. And then they have all the moon transits. Yeah, like it's really amazing. I
very cool.
highly recommend it. Yeah, and yeah, like I said, you can get digital copies of it, but this is where I take all my notes too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, if
Awesome.
anybody
Where can we
wants to
find your
connect with you.
information, Diana?
Yes, that's what I was going to.
well, Cass will provide the link. Yeah, so Out Amongst the Stars Astrology is the YouTube or the handle, and
Yeah.
that's basically what what I go by under that, and the Instagram. And then if anybody wants to join the Facebook group, we can just connect through either of the messaging on the apps, and I can send you a link to that. But I believe the link to the Facebook group, it's in the link tree,
Yeah,
out
I'll
amongst.
throw the links in the description for everybody. And
Yeah,
you can book with Diana as well. I've had a reading with Diana and very insightful. A lot of stuff that I think you read from me during my Saturn return, and there was a lot of stuff that initially I was like, no, like maybe this could make sense, maybe not. And then like within 6 months, I was like, oh my god, like all of it like lined up perfectly, and it was uncanny. So yeah, highly recommend that. And then we'll have you back on hopefully within the next couple months, and hopefully not with the technical difficulties like today. But yeah, I think it would be good to go through some of these other themes here, because I feel like this is a big year, and I mean it's hard
big.
to cover one year in one episode. So yeah,
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I get a little caught up in in all the details too because of my Gemini and yeah, so it's hard to keep the big broad. It's that Mercury Jupiter opposition again, right? It's sort of like yeah, getting getting all the broad overview, but getting caught up in the details. So it's better to do it in small chunks because it can be very overwhelming. And I absolutely love working with people who are in and around those Saturn returns because they're so pivotal. This was my pivotal Saturn return right here. I was going to give you a hug.
Thanks,
Shelby's
Mom.
like, let me go. I want to go for a nap. At least I want to go for a nap.
We're pushing hard into nap time here, yeah.
Yeah. As soon as it like hit 3 o'clock, I'm like, man, we went too late. It's nap time right now.
Yeah,
totally.
Anyways,
Okay.
thank you so much, guys, for having us.
Thank you.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.